Good evening, I'm Jose Cardenas. We'll get to know the first woman and Latina to lead the Arizona Democratic Party, plus learn about the state's first approved charter school for autistic kids. And images detail the historic path that runs through a part of the Arizona desert into California. All this coming up next on Horizonte.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station.
Thanks for joining us. Last month, the Arizona Democratic Party elected a new chair, and for the first time, a woman will be leading the state party. Alexis Tameron was the chief of staff for Congressman Harry Mitchell. Join me as we get to know Alexis Tameron, the new chair for the Arizona Democratic Party. Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And given the results of the last election, why would you want this job?
Well, I've been asked that question, and I think I am no stranger to challenges. I think that there's a lot of good that we can do. And given my background in politics and running campaigns, I think that, I can stay on the sidelines and kind of argue from afar, or I can get in and try to make some change.
Speaking of that last election, what do you think went wrong for the Democratic Party?
I think that more than anything else, our turnout and our ability to convince voters to come out and vote was flawed. The difference between 2004 and 2010 in terms of turnout, which we thought 2010 was one of the worst years for Democrats in terms of turnout and election results, we think it actually got worse in 2014. And I think more than anything else, what the data will end up telling us was there was an effect of the dark money that came into our state and made the environment so toxic and negative, really depressed turnout in amongst our folks who we were hoping would come out and vote.
Well, you would have expected a lower turnout anyway, right, for an off-year election?
Correct, but 2010 was also an off-year election. It did bump up in 2012, but 2010 was one of the worst years for turnout in an off year, in a midterm. So thinking that you couldn't get further lower than 2010, I think we topped ourselves, unfortunately, in 2014.
And how much of it was Obama fatigue?
I do think that there was a little bit of that, but in particular, because it was such an Arizona-centric election, I think that we saw the effects of dark money and how that played into our elections. It was overly negative, more negative, I believe, than ever before. Millions and millions of dollars that we didn't anticipate being dumped into the state to basically influence turnout. It did its job, but unfortunately, I think that Arizona voters were shortchanged.
So I think many people would say that explains the results in most of the statewide elections for Democrats. But how do you explain David Garcia's defeat? He was running against an opponent who really didn't campaign, so there was no money going into support her. To the extent money was being spent, it was being spent in his favor by Republicans, business groups, former superintendents of public instruction who were Republicans who came out and supported him. What happened there?
I think that based upon what turnout was, if turnout had stayed the same, a baseline that it was in 2010, and it stayed the same in 2014, not only would we have David Garcia as our superintendent of public instruction, but Terry Goddard would be our Secretary of State, and I think by a very close margin, Felicia Rodolini would have been our Attorney General. It's specifically, turnout affected statewide everyone, from our gubernatorial candidate on down, and in particular, I think because Dr. Garcia was based in Phoenix, a lot of what we had hoped in terms of education and name ID and things that you would measure a successful campaign was not as strong as we would have liked it in Pima County. Given
that there don't appear to be any movements right now anyway to limit the amount of money that's spent in campaigns to control dark money, why do you think the next set of elections will be any different?
Well, we have a presidential race coming up, and generally the turnout is much, much higher in a presidential election. It's going to be an open presidential election, meaning both the Democrats and Republicans don't have an incumbent. So I think there's going to be a lot of excitement around that. But I also think the reason why, too, I ran for state party chairs because we really have to invest in the infrastructure of our party. And the way you combat dark money and combat some of the effects that we saw happen in 2014 is you have to organize, and you have to organize early, but you have to have a concise message. You have to have individuals who identify with that message, and you have to have the resources in order to get those folks out early. But it's a lot of education that we have to do in the community.
What about the Latino vote? Everybody talks about the impact it could have if it turned out in numbers that were any near proportional to the size in the population and the voting eligible population. What do you think you can do there?
Well, I think that, again, going back to it being a presidential election, 2016, we'll see the numbers climb up. And in past elections, election cycles, every 2 years, we do see the number climb in terms of percentage. And I think it's just a matter of making sure that we go back and organize in the community, in particular from the Democratic Party, why it's important to vote and why we think that the Democratic Party represents the interests not only of Latino families, but families in general who are eager to invest in education, who want to make sure they have access to health care, and taking care of their family members, and making sure that they have the tools in order to compete in the global economy that we have.
So what role does the party itself play in your position in particular in terms of recruiting candidates to run in elections?
Well, we do a lot of that. We have organizations across the state. We're organized by county, but in terms of the state party and what we do here in Phoenix is we help to raise the money and identify candidates and basically be a resource for them in running their campaigns, whether it's, if they're a first-time candidate or have run before, whether they're school board, city council, or anything kind of in between. We just make sure that they know the choice to run for office is a tough one. Their families go through a lot. They're constantly under the microscope. But as a party, we want to be there as a base of support and have our expertise, if you will, to lend those candidates not only in meeting people and being a network, but also how to fund your campaigns and helping you raise money to do that.
Alexis, last question. You indicated that one of the problems for the Democratic Party in Arizona, perhaps in this last election, perhaps before that, is messaging and people not appreciating, perhaps to the extent you would want them to, that there is a difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party here. What is the message and how are you going to get it out?
Well, I think that it's going to be by county, by what is important to individuals, and that is going to be an education process. What we don't do is just say, well, we think people are interested in this. We go out and not only do polling, but we talk to folks in the community of what those interests and concerns are to them, and making sure that over and over again we indicate how we're different from the other party, but what we can do better if we're in power in order to make some change.
Alexis Tameron, the new chair of the Arizona Democratic Party, thanks for joining us on Horizonte.
Thank you for having me.
Arizona's first state-approved charter school for autistic kids opened in August. The school is serving grades kindergarten to 5th grade. Joining me to talk about the school is Diana Diaz Harrison, lead founder and executive director. Welcome to Horizonte.
Thank you for having me, Jose.
You were inspired to get involved because of your own personal experiences with your son. Tell us about that.
That's right. I had a little boy, my first child, at about age 2.5. He was officially diagnosed with autism. And many parents who go through this process know that there's first a lot of grieving and a lot of outreach for resources and a lot of researching on the internet for answers and solutions, and it's a very hard diagnosis to accept because there's no cure. But what I did learn by going to some of the most well-known resource centers here in Arizona is that there is hope. And one of the ways that you can help kids with autism best is by giving them intensive early intervention instruction in a technique called applied behavior analysis. So that is the world that I dived into head on and worked with my son, since he was diagnosed.
And one of your concerns was he was in a good program, but you were afraid that he was going to age out, and then what would he do? And tell us about what the options are for parents of autistic children in terms of schooling. As I understand, there are basically 4, and you've basically come up with a 5th.
Yeah, so parents can go to their nearest public school, and if the child is, at a level on the autism spectrum where they need intensive special education services, many of the school districts now have autism programs at least one of the district schools. Parents can also seek out a private school. And now with our option, there are a couple of charter schools.
Yours was the first, though.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that struck me as a bit of a surprise because given the prevalence, or at least there's a lot of attention these days on autism, that yours would be the first charter school to focus on that. Why do you think that is?
I am not so sure because other states in our country had autism charter schools already in place, and Arizona has a higher prevalence of autism than many other states, with currently 1 in 64 children affected, 1 in 40 boys affected with autism. So it was about time that somebody came forward with this proposal to the state charter board, and I think because of the higher incidence and how people are becoming more informed about the condition, the charter board was very, very open to our proposal.
Now, in terms of the students that you admit, do they have to be autistic, or are you also expected to admit other children and deal with them as well?
We are bound by the same rules as any other charter school. So we can be very targeted in our outreach, but as a public school, we would have to take any student with either another diagnosis or even a typically developing student into our acceptance pool if they submitted a timely application and we had space in the grade level.
So let's talk about the school itself. What is it that you do that's different for autistic children than what they might get in a special school district school where they're focused on that as well?
Mm-hmm. Well, we have very small class sizes with only 9 students per class max. We also have at least a 3-to-1 student to staff ratio, and there is a lead certified teacher and 2 highly trained paraprofessionals. So all of the staff at our school has either really great experience, credential, or is highly trained to work with children with autism. Many times the school districts don't have that same level of expertise as what we're hiring and then continuing to develop at our school. As a matter of fact, we're going to be a practicum site for ASU students going into autism education and becoming board certified behavior specialists. So not only is our mission to help students on the autism spectrum, but also develop the pool of professionals helping these students.
While you were talking, we ran pictures of some of the students in the school, some of the classrooms. How many kids do you have in the school right now?
Well, we are capped at 90 students, and we have started our open enrollment period for the next school year. And as it happens with many well-known charter schools, we've received more applications than we have spaces. So we'll have to go into a lottery for the next school year.
Now, one of the things we focused on was the playground.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen the video and some of the things that make it special and a particular relevance to autistic children. Tell us about that.
Well, we got to build the playground and pick the equipment. A lot of our kids with autism have sensory needs and needs to have facilitated play where they can work together. So we picked sensory equipment that stimulates their vision and their, different parts of their proprioceptive system that need to be worked by physical therapists or occupational therapist. We also have a modern day merry-go-round where the kiddos can sit together and we have them request to be pushed or spun faster or slower and elicit language while meeting their sensory needs.
As we've mentioned, yours was the first in the state of Arizona. Any surprises as you went through this process, either of creating it or once you got started, issues that came up that you hadn't expected?
I had a lot of support. I formerly worked at the Southwest Autism Center, and so had a lot of contacts that could give me the information that I needed to submit to prove that we were the right team to be allowed to have the school. The charter application process is very, very rigorous. Typically, companies that have started schools will apply for charters, but I was a mom. So I got a lot of support from the Arizona Charter Schools Association, who have a charter starter program that helps developing teams get through that very rigorous state application process. So it was challenging, and it took a few years to develop. I also applied for a lot of startup grants that are typically not open for schools that are considered alternative schools, but my applications were accepted because of the high need in the community for a school like this.
Diana Diaz Harrison,
yes.
Thank you so much for joining us on Horizonte to talk about this most important topic, and good luck in the future.
Thank you very much.
To find out more information about what's on Horizonte, go to azpbs.org and click on the Horizonte tab at the top of the screen. There you can access many features to become a more informed Horizonte viewer. Watch interviews by clicking on the video button or by scrolling down to the bottom of the page for the most recent segments. Learn about more specific topics like arts and culture and immigration. You can also find out what's on Horizonte for the upcoming week. If you would like an RSS feed, a podcast, or you want to buy a video, that's all on our website too. Other features include our collection of website links and a special page for educators. While you're there, show your support for Horizonte with just one click. Discover all that's on Horizonte. Visit azpbs.org, Horizonte today.
Watch sneak previews of what's coming soon to 8. Go to azpbs.org/previews today.
Photographer Mark Klett has spent decades capturing images of the desert regions of the southwestern United States. His recent series of images, Camino del Diablo, or Road of the Devil, offer images from the path running through a part of the Arizona desert into California. Joining me now to talk about the images is Mark Klett, photographer and Regents Professor of Art in the ASU School of Art. Professor Klett, welcome to Horizonte.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
You've been getting a lot of attention lately for this exhibition. You've got part of it on exhibit in New York City. The New York Times wrote a fascinating piece about it. How did you come to put these pictures together, and what was it that inspired you to do this?
Well, somehow, and I can't remember when, I ran across this text by Raphael Pompelli, who was a young mining engineer who came to Arizona in 1860. And he spent a year in Arizona and chronicled that experience, published a book in 1870 called Across America and Asia. And he went to Asia after Arizona. And I found it really fascinating, the way he describes Arizona in the 1860s, that it was a lawless territory, that where the dregs of society came to because they were being kicked out of every other place, that they were killing each other because there wasn't any law enforcement. The Mexicans were killing the whites because they were being treated as peons. The Apaches were killing everybody else because their territory was being invaded, and it was this utter chaos. And I thought about it at the time as an interesting story, but when I thought what would be interesting would be to go back and try to travel the same road that Pompelli traveled, the Camino. And I did, and that's when I began to see some parallels that became really kind of interesting.
And you did it on several occasions, right?
Yes, I actually went there first in the 1990s, and at that time the Camino was really kind of a dirt track. And when I went back again a few years ago, I realized it really changed. The road had been widened a lot from the Border Patrol enforcement.
Yeah, give us a sense for what part of Arizona we're talking about.
Okay, we're talking about the southwestern corner, right along the border, a little bit east of Yuma. And this is an area that's sort of bordered on the east side by the Cabeza Prieta. And on the west side, it's the part of the Barry Goldwater bombing range.
And we've got some pictures we're going to start to run while we're talking here of what it looks like now. But what were you trying to do? Were you trying to give a sense for what it might have been like when Pompelli was there. I mean, his experience was pretty hair-raising. I
Yeah,
read some of the
yeah.
excerpts from his book.
Yeah, he escaped death several times. I think I was trying to just re-experience the place and using his text as a guide. Most of my work in photography has dealt with using history as a guide to re-experience the present. And so my thinking about Pompelli was, you know, how
And the
different is
pictures,
it now?
excuse me, that we're
Oh.
running, I mean, it looks like a pretty desolate.
Yeah, no, that's a picture of the upper tank at Tinajas Altas, where just dozens of people died trying to get to that water, and that's one of the only watering places in 130 miles out there in the desert. That's a very barren stretch, but also very beautiful, and I think that's what's important.
And I think we capture the beauty in this picture here of the nightline.
Yeah, and that lights that you see in the corner, that's the Border Patrol driving the Camino, and they're actually dragging tires behind the vehicle to smooth the road out so they can watch for footprints crossing the road. They're dragging the road in that case. But it is very beautiful, yeah.
And this additional evidence of the route that immigrants are.
Yeah, so this is a place that's crisscrossed on a regular basis by immigrants, and that things are left, and also by smugglers as well.
And in your own experiences traveling here, did you run into any dangerous situations there? You got a picture here of some bullets. Is that from the gunnery range?
That's
or-
actually a bomb, yeah.
bomb.
So this is part of the Goldwater bombing range, and there are unexploded munitions there in certain places, and you have to get a permit to go there. So you have to sign some waivers and get a permit to go on the range. But it's an incredibly beautiful place. This is just an example of the remnants. You know, here's a picture of the sun setting with the red clouds in the background, but in the foreground is a very faint track because when you cross this part of the desert in a vehicle and you leave tracks, it's going to stay there for decades, really.
So how much did you feel that you were experiencing what he was experiencing at the time when he was there, you know,
Yeah.
over 100 years earlier?
You know, our experiences are different because of the time period, but I think there's a parallel quality to it. In his time, he was really apprehensive about crossing the Camino because of the dangers of being attacked, either by you know, Mexicans who were trailing him and trying to rob him, or by Apaches who might be out there and hiding. But you know, I think in my experience, it's much safer today, even though we have dangers. But I think there's still a sense of militarization. There's still a sense of danger, if not only because of what's happening there with the bombing range or remnants or the you know, people who are crossing. It's also the climate. The climate is extreme, and in the summertime, it's, you know, it's 120 degrees, and it kills people. So there is that sense, but at the same time, what I really appreciated about Pompelli's work, even in spite of his misgivings about his experience, he loved the place, and he talked about how beautiful it was. And that's something that I think we can share, you know, that the quality of the light, the color, the beauty of the daytime, the clarity of the air, the cactus, the rocks, the things that just make it, you know, really compelling. It's one of the most spectacularly beautiful places left of the Sonoran Desert, and I think that's something that we can both share.
So you've got an exhibition in New York and a much larger one in Tucson. Tell us about what you have in New York, what it shows, and then let's talk about Tucson.
Yeah, so in New York, it's a little bit bigger show of this work, but we have the pictures in the gallery combined with some text from the book. And I think it was really important for me.
From Pompelli's
From Pompelli's text, yeah. So it's really important for me to have viewers understand that it's done in response to the earlier work. And in Tucson, we have very similar things at the Etherton Gallery. That there is text on the wall with the pictures. There's less of that. And that show also includes some earlier work of mine in the desert. And some of that actually was done on the Camino as well, but in earlier days, yeah.
And how long will that exhibition be running in Tucson?
In Tucson, it'll be up through March 21st. Yeah.
And what are you hoping Arizonans get out of it that maybe visitors wouldn't, or vice versa?
Well, I think it's easy for us to get lost in the arguments about the border, about the fence. And you know, the border fence runs parallel to large parts of the Camino. It's easier for us to get lost in the politics and the heated arguments that happen there. But one thing we need to understand that there's the landscape itself, we can still appreciate it. That it's something Pompelli did in spite of the dangers. It's something we can do. And I'm interested in the fact that people do care about this place. I mean, I care about it. Other people care about it.
Well, I think that comes out very well in your pictures. Thank you so much, Professor Kleff, for joining us to talk about this
Thank you.
magnificent exhibition.
Thank you.
That's our show for tonight from all of us here at 8 in Horizonte. Thank you for watching. I'm Jose Cardenas. Have a good evening.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station.